Evidently, we didn't impress her too much, though, because she's not back today.
So maybe it's not time yet.
Well, that's true, too. We're still early. Okay, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison. Chilly spring day. Feels good after a couple hot days. So, and we still didn't have to turn the heat on. It's still comfortable. So, do we have any announcements? I don't think there's anything coming up. Can't think of anything. All right, today we're talking about, we were talking about critical thinking last week, so naturally I just fell right into that and started doing some research on it. But before I got there, this has been a monumental week, almost like every week, for occurrences in the news. This one caught my eye. I don't know if you've seen this before. 2 Israeli soldiers, well, one soldier with a sledgehammer and the other with a camera, knocking down, and this is in a Christian village in Lebanon, knocking down the statue of Jesus, which is pretty prominent in any Catholic family, and destroying it, and then posting it online. Caused an outrage all across the world, and then the Israelis had to do something about it, so those 2 soldiers were arrested and put in jail at least for a couple days till the heat dies down. And sometime along in here we'll do an actual complete Sunday on, I talk about this every Sunday, and it happens every Sunday. There's new aggressions and transgressions against the Palestinians. The last one was the settlers went to a Palestinian school and started shooting into the school, killed a 14-year-old and a 36-year-old teacher for no problem, just into a school, and then the Israeli troops came and basically just stood by and watched while they shot at the students. And I think there's video pictures of that, so I may show you that sometime along the line. It's just, and that's kind of what we'll talk about. We talked about a little bit last week about the transition, how people go from being the victim to being the aggressor to being the perpetrator. It's a strange transition. I do not understand it, but I guess my basic curiosity wants me to figure out how it happened. So we're going to keep working on that type of thing. If anybody has suggestions on some topic they would like to see investigated, let me know. All right, play the prelude, Blowing in the Wind, which is perfect. Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan, just as relevant today, maybe more so than it was in the 60s. Our chalice lighting, a reminder of what we share, by Pat Lichty. The chalice is a symbol of our faith. Like our faith, it is not magic, nor is it mysterious. We light it as a reminder of what we share as a community and of who each of us is called to be. When we feel lost in a chaotic world, may the light of our chalice show us our path. When we are afraid of the times we live in, may the light of our chalice give us courage. When we despair at the injustice and cruelty around us, may the light of our chalice recall us to a faithful hope. Our chalice is a symbol of our commitment to each other and to ourselves. We light it today as a gathered community that we may understand more completely and act more boldly and hope more fiercely. Our opening hymn is number 1 in your hymnal. May nothing evil cross this door. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and to hold love in. Okay, critical thinking is what we're talking about. Critical thinking is something that we're losing. Some people think intentionally. It's kind of suspicious that there's every effort against DEI or critical thinking, every effort to banish any kind of negative thought, any kind of truth, unpleasant truth about our history. Critical thinking is what makes those truths come alive, and that's what improves us as a nation. So, one of our quotes that I ran across, half our mistakes in life arise from feeling when we ought to be thinking, and thinking when we ought to be feeling. Half our mistakes in life arise from feeling when we ought to be thinking, and thinking when we ought to be feeling. You have to think about that for a while, and feel it. All right, our opening hymn, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. We did that, and we're now to affirmation. This is a values prayer after St. Francis by Christopher Buce. May the instruments of your peace, where there is indifference, may we bring justice. Where there is selfishness, may we bring equity. Where there is stagnation, may we bring transformation. Where there is homogeneity, may we bring pluralism. Where there is isolation, may we bring interdependence. Where there is greed, may we bring generosity. And where there is hatred, may we bring love. Make us instruments of your peace, with love at the center of everything we do. Very profound proclamation of DEI. All right, joys and concerns. Hopefully Cecil's feeling better and will be able to return. He gets her strength back. She is out of the hospital, correct?
Oh, yeah, it has been for a long time.
Okay. It just takes a while, and I think we can all attest to that. The more age you put on your bones and body, the longer it takes for it to hop back into where you want it to be. I guess we'll have our candle for all of our absent friends and family, friends and neighbors and attendees. Hopefully everybody's doing well. I have not had any updates from anybody. We always welcome those if anybody wants to bring us up to where they are.
I saw Ty this week. He sends everyone his regards.
Good.
And he often reads and listens to what we send out, which is good.
Yes.
He sent us a donation for the offering plate today, and he wishes us all well.
So, we'll light a candle for Ty. We really miss his singing voice. Anybody who can carry a tune is always welcome. All right. As is usual, we will light a candle for the Ukraine. That's our sunflowers are here. No real changes. Ukraine's been pushed out of the news, but not pushed out of reality. Attacks still take place. If you watch the multiple news stations or the 24-hour news on CNN, you'll see reports of civilians, 5, 10, 15, 20 being killed at least every day from Russian drones, Russian missiles. Still targeting the electric stations, basically what is considered a war crime. Israel is still pounding Lebanon, even though there's a ceasefire. It is looking more and more, the reports, they are targeting reporters and EMS people, first responders, over and over again. They'll make a strike, and then it's what they call a double tap. They'll drop a bomb or a drone or a rocket on a site. Usually it's just an apartment building, which they claim is being used by Hamas. And then 15 or 20 minutes later, after the reporters are there and EMS is there, they will target that same site again. Over 250 reporters have been killed in the Middle East in the last year and a half. Well, 2 years, I think. 250. There was actually a protest at the Presidential Journalist Awards ceremony last night before the shooting occurred, which I guess we need to light a candle for everybody involved in that. Once again, violence comes to everything that happens. You're open to violence. Mexico, the tourists were at the Aztec mound, and someone started shooting and killed a Canadian tourist. You are not safe anywhere now with the plethora of guns. Everybody has guns. Crazy people have guns, and there's no shortage of people willing to use them. Kids, teenagers, 15, 16, go to the mall and fight with each other and indiscriminately shoot all over the place and kill innocent bystanders. I don't think anybody would be too concerned if they went to the football field in the middle of the night and killed each other, but when they go to the mall and kill innocent people, sooner or later, I would think something's going to have to be done about that. So we'll see. I've got renters. I'm having to file my eviction things. I cannot get them to pay their rent, and I've found places for them to live in assisted living. They refuse to go. I don't know what else to do. All I can do now is complete the eviction. I cannot just let people live there for free. On and on and on. I got bit, went into the backyard to get into one of my garages and storage, and one of the tenants' dogs bit me. Mm-hmm. So I have to call animal control Monday and see if they have rabies shots. I'm going to rewrite the lease that says no pets allowed, and we'll see what happens with that. So always another interesting day in the business of living. All right, anything else? All right, we'll light one candle for those thoughts and prayers, those fears, those trepidations which we haven't voiced, and maybe which we're not even aware of. Okay, children's story. We're going to kind of skip ahead here a little bit. Does anybody know what that is?
Rat.
Yeah,
Rat.
it's called Pizza Rat. Maybe you didn't see it. Like last year or 2 years ago or whatever, it was all over the news. The comedians, the late night comedians just had a heyday with it. Rats in New York, and there was multiple different pictures of rats picking up, throwing down hot dogs, scurrying along the streets. The rat population is pretty popular, and you might ask what rats have to do with critical thinking. Rats are pretty good, it seems, at critical thinking. They don't just eat whatever comes along. Why? Because half the time
Be poisoned?
it's poison. Yeah, it's poison. So, and the scientist that was studying this made it sound like they're critical thinkers, so they have, all rats won't go up and eat anything. They'll have one rat go test it, and if he dies, then the rest of the rats will leave it alone. I'm not sure whether that's a selection process, or the rat, the stupid younger rat, or maybe the rat that's transgressed against the community and that's his punishment to be the king's taster. They didn't really explain that and didn't really talk about it. But that is one of the cardinal rules of critical thinking, is always look at anything you were told or anything you're watching or anything you're trying to understand from multiple different perspectives. When somebody says rats will send one rat to eat and test to see if it's poisonous, you have to ask yourself, are they making this rat do that? Or is this rat just dumb enough to do it? Or is this rat a sacrificial rat that was blessed by the rat community and walks out the door to take a bullet if he has to? That part wasn't explained, so if you're critical thinking, you're curious and you want to find out. So that's one of the ways you do it. What I got started with here is the week intruded on my preparations again. Have you heard about the Bible pageant that happened this week or last week? There was an actual public Bible reading. It's pretty popular in this country. And the president, our president, read out of the Bible, 2 Chronicles 7, verses 11 to 22. Of course, he called it 2 Chronicles as the scholar of the Bible that he is, his favorite book. And he can't name any verse by memory. He can't even name the numbers of any verse by memory. But before anything else, it's worth understanding why he chose this actual passage. And I'm going to read you the passage and see what you think about it. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. That is 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 11. That's I think 13 or 14. It's not the whole 11 to 22. Some have proposed that God uses the wicked as tools for good. I'm sure you've heard that. That applies to our current situation where somebody married multiple times with multiple children, multiple transgressions, multiple bankruptcies, lies every day, cannot be held up as a paragon of virtue, but still can be used for good by God. That is the understanding. You can see David in the Old Testament, and this actual quote refers to Solomon. I'm sure you've all heard of Solomon. You know the guy, he had 700 pagan wives, 300 concubines. He built pagan shrines for all of his pagan wives. He was enamored with gold and silver. He conquered foreign lands and brought the gold and silver back and built monumental places for his people, baths, gardens, big displays of monuments. Was pretty famous. He built a sparkling monumental city. God tells Solomon to humble himself, to pray and turn from wickedness, and Solomon does not. And the Old Testament says God punished the Israelis for that. The thing to remember is, and what critical thinking has to do about this is, this Bible passage is directed at who? It is directly written to the Israelis, to the people of Israel, and to Solomon, telling him to repent and give up his idolatry. What was the reason that he had 700 wives? Because he made alliances with all the nations in the Middle East. If you married one of their daughters, then you and that king became friends, and you trade back and forth, and you do not attack each other. So it wasn't just lust and licentiousness that drove him to collect all these wives and concubines. That was the way that people made alliances, and actually that still comes up into the Middle Ages, into the 1800s. If you remember your European history, there's all kinds of regents from England marrying Spanish, or Queen Elizabeth married the German prince. Those alliances still go on. Even today, they still go on. So, but the Bible passages is telling us that they are directed at the Israelis. It's not a little thing you drop your coin in and you pull out this Bible passage. So this phrase is read by many fundamentalist Christians, many Christian nationalists, as if it applies to the United States. They say if we turn to God and forgive and ask for forgiveness, we will be blessed by God. It's not a coin slot. I mean, the Israelis can't do this, the Arabs can't do this, the Chinese can't do that. You can't just say, God bless us if we confess our sins and ask for forgiveness. And it doesn't work like that. So, part of the critical thinking is it's not a magical incantation to benefit any Tom, Dick, or Harry that reads it. It is for the Jews to learn from. It warns against idolatry, greed, pride, and immorality. As I said, does that ring any bells? Pay attention. Don't accept at face value the first information that's presented. Pausing, checking, and doubting yourself may matter more than talent or IQ in critical thinking. It keeps you alive by helping you avoid bad information that can harm your health. A good example, the breakthroughs of fortune often come from questioning the obvious. Your brain works against critical thinking. It's wired to agree with others and protect your existing beliefs. Critical thinking can be trained by checking original sources and getting comfortable with being wrong. And then we come to the rats. You ever wonder why rats are so spectacularly successful in our cities? They live in our walls, our subways, our basements. They flourish in places we find impossible. Why? Because they are critical thinkers, sort of. City rats face a daily buffet. Pizza crust, half a bagel, spilled fries, but mixed into this feast would be poisons, always. One careless bite and that is the end of the story. So how do rats survive? They hesitate. When a rat encounters unfamiliar food, it often lets another rat eat first. If nothing happens, the observer will join in later. If the taster gets sick or dies, the food is banned forever. Rats remember these lessons for days, which makes poisoning entire colonies difficult. This behavior, known as bait shyness, has been documented for decades. It is a primitive version of critical thinking, eerily similar to what kings and emperors would do to avoid being murdered. They make their chefs the tasters. Now, before you feel offended by the comparison with rats, consider this. Humans are not always as careful as rats. In fact, we are often far worse. We live in an age of endless information. News, hot takes, rumors, screenshots, and confident nonsense stream past us all day long. Some of it is nutritious, some of it is toxic, And unlike rats, we often swallow first and think later. Take vaccines. If you believe the false claim that the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine caused autism, a claim thoroughly discredited by large epidemiological studies, you may choose not to be vaccinated. The cost is to expose yourself to the risk of measles, mumps, and rubella, which have been on the rise in the United States. Almost 2,000 cases spread completely across the United States, excuse me, but localized where? Primarily in communities who are fundamentalist Christian or fundamentalist other religions who do not believe in science. They believe what they are told by their leaders, by their influencers, by what they see on the internet. And these are the people that suffer, although they are not the ones that suffer. It's their kids that suffer, the kids who have no choice. They are told and they are controlled by their parents. During the COVID pandemic, the pattern repeated. Multiple studies showed people that refused vaccination died at far higher rates than those who accepted it, especially among old adults. Critical thinking, in other words, can be a matter of life and death. And what is the new proclamation that just came out from the Secretary of War regarding vaccination? Anybody aware of that? It is no longer required for anybody in the service, military service, to get a flu shot. Flu shots used to be mandatory to keep the troops healthy. Now that mandatory statute has been dropped. Just like you don't have to get a COVID shot, you also do not have to get a flu shot. This is a full-blown attack on science at every level. The National Council of Science Advisors, did you hear that news? That entire council has been fired. The National Council of Scientific Advisors that advises the nation on science information and science facts has been fired. Is there some kind of mysterious thing going on here? Okay. But even when death is not on the line, critical thinking quietly shapes success. Science runs on it. Galileo questioned the heavens. When everybody said the earth was the center of the universe, Galileo said, no, that's the sun. And what happened? He was threatened with death, and he finally recanted for a long period of time until he came back again and said, no, I was right the first time. But to save his life, and I don't blame the guy, I mean, what's the point of sacrificing your life for a belief that most people have nothing to do with? Darwin questioned creation. Einstein questioned time itself. Marie Curie questioned what matter was really made of. None of them accepted the obvious answer. Each insisted on testing ideas against evidence, even when that evidence was inconvenient or unpopular. Business does this too. Warren Buffett built his fortune not by following the crowd, but by distrusting it. His most famous advice sounds unbelievably simple. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. So when everybody is piling into the market and the market is shooting up, that's when you need to be careful and hesitant and maybe pull back. When everybody is dumping all their stocks in a panic, that is when you buy. That is the ultimate beginning of buy low, sell high. In fact, what most of us do, and this happened to me in the 80s when the stock market crashed, we just had invested when we had money, and I sold a bunch of our stocks at that crash. I learned my lesson then, and now we buy, although you have to be careful because in the 20s, when the market crashed, it didn't bounce back, it crashed again, and then it crashed again. So I'm not sure what Buffett would say about this coming up in the future here. Our economy looks pretty shaky, and yet people buy. We've hit the highest numbers yet, and that's something I do not understand, and we are applying critical thinking to try and figure that out. Okay, 8 habits of critical thinkers. Getting it right over being right. They can put aside their egos to recognize that they do not need to have all the answers. They are willing to admit not knowing something or to making mistakes. They know the importance of asking questions and seeking out the best available information. It's not an ego, it's not something to be proud of, I'm always right. It's looking to be right and not being afraid to change your mind if you're proven wrong. Thoughtful analysis over quick judgment. This is number 2, the second habit. They take the time to gather as much information as possible to better understand a complex situation before taking action. They recognize the consequences that some decisions are more important than others, and these decisions require more attention. Question information, just don't accept it. They ask questions to discover what's behind the data. They recognize that it is important not only to confirm the facts are correct, but to also understand the information can be presented in a way that will support a particular agenda. Information can be loaded in a way that makes one outcome obvious when maybe it is not so obvious. Similarly, they know how to inquire about information that may have been left out because it does not lend to support. So when we ask why that particular rat, how was he chosen? We don't know. That's a question that still remains that we're looking for an answer for. Number 4, balance analysis with action. Let the information form its own pattern. Don't force it into a pre-drawn schematic. You will never have all the information and facts that you want or need, but if you have been patient and wide-ranging, you can make the best decision possible with the information that you have. 5, embrace continuous learning. They are inquisitive about a wide range of topics and issues, make a regular effort to read and educate themselves, gathering information that may be important for making decisions in the future. Practice intellectual flexibility. Number 6, critical thinkers demonstrate flexibility by considering alternative viewpoints and opinions, by understanding opposite perspectives, adapting their thinking based on new information, using multiple frameworks to analyze situations, by building confidence through reasoned analysis. And 7, turn critical thinking inward. They can explain how they arrived at their conclusion, allowing others to follow their reasoning and understand their thinking. They expose their thinking and understanding to others to see if there's any holes, any leaks, any breakdowns in their thinking, and someone else with a new perspective can challenge that and add to it. Through self-examination and sensitivity to their own biases, they ask themselves questions such as, do I have all the necessary information? If my conclusions are true, what are the likely implications? They look ahead to the future to see they follow through with what their understanding is. If this is true, will this happen? If this is not true, what will still happen? They are willing to change their views when they are provided with more information that allows greater understanding. They are willing to change their views. Critical thinking mindset is number 8. They are confident but not cocky, reflective yet able to take action, decisive while yet showing reasonable analysis. They can demonstrate patience when the stakes are high and the issues are not black and white. They read more than the average person and communicate their ideas clearly. They can think independently, but place value on different perspectives. They accept responsibility when things go wrong and seek to understand what happened so they can learn from their mistakes. No decision is set in stone. Adjustments can and will be made. Are you a critical thinker? They cannot be developed. These skills cannot be developed overnight. Practicing these 8 habits described here will improve one's critical thinking abilities. So another roadblock that stands in the way is what they call Google overload. Too much information, too fast, can distort reasoned thinking. This is one of the barriers to critical thinking. Information floods in they talk about the fire hose effect. Every day on every avenue, people you talk to, anything you see on the internet, anything you see on TV, anything you see on your phone, there's tons and tons of information. It's hard to process all that information. Secondly, beware of echo chambers. Everybody likes to be around friends who think the way they think. Everybody likes to have their opinions reflected back to them and patted on the back for how intelligent they are. Beware of any group that says you're always right. That is a dangerous, dangerous signal. Shy away from sensationalism. Not everything is a crisis. That is one of the things that's happening now, particularly on your phone or on the internet. These crisis words, particularly when you're reading reviews of what someone said or what someone did, when they say they crushed them, they mangled them, they destroyed them, all these loaded, sensational, emotional words, they are leading you into an opinion which may not be factual. And become curious, stay curious, ask why. And one thing I will finish with is a quote that I just ran across. The poor and the middle people pay taxes. The rich pay accountants. The very rich pay lawyers. The billionaires pay politicians. The split in this country has become unbelievable between, and we may do a Sunday on that, on the division between the rich and those who have and those who have not. The wage increases for the average middle class person has increased 5, 10, 15% over the last 25 or 30 years. They've increased like 400 to 500% for the billionaire class. Unbelievable. The billionaire class, like the top 0.5%, owns a huge percentage of all the wealth in this country. And it's growing worse and worse. It is almost as bad now as it was in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, when there was a tremendous split. And that's what called Teddy Roosevelt to bring in the trust busters. There's no one on the horizon now to break trusts. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But that is, in my opinion, is the destroying the basic idea of republic, the basic idea of democracy. It happened in Rome, and we've talked about this before. As far as 2,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, Rome started out as a republic with everybody equal. The rich got richer. They became so rich that they hired other people to do everything. They bought their senators. They bought the councils that ruled Rome. And Rome basically started hiring foreign mercenaries to do their fighting. And one day the mercenaries, the Germanic mercenaries came in and said, "We're tired of doing your dirty work, we're taking over." And they did, and that was the fall of Rome. The Roman civilization moved east to Byzantium, to Constantinople, and lasted for another 500 years. But the Rome we know in Italy disappeared and brought in what? The Dark Ages. What were the Dark Ages? The destruction of science. Rome's architecture, Rome's medicine, Rome's creativity, Rome's engineering skills, that all disappeared. The great monuments of Rome, the only thing that survived were the things that were made with Roman concrete, which we still to this day are only beginning to understand. Why Roman concrete? Why the aqueducts still stand. In France, there's an aqueduct that's 1,500 years old, still standing. They mixed pumice. They mixed volcanic sand, volcanic erupted sand with their concrete, which gave it the ability to grow stronger with time rather than weaker. If you look at our concrete, right now they're rebuilding I-70 in Richmond. They've torn out entire bridge decks, completely lifted them off and replacing them. They were built in the 60s. So in that amount of time, that concrete has completely fallen apart and disappeared, and we're starting over again. They are not using what they learned in Rome. So, okay, comments, questions? You want to hear?
Why isn't critical thinking taught more widely than simply in philosophy courses and a similar type of coursework? Why is it not taught at all levels of schooling, including university and elementary school?
I think I've told you my conspiracy myth, my conspiracy theory before. It is because rich people do not want a population that can think. They are intentionally destroying in any public school, in any educational process. They are attacking libraries any source of public information. They are encouraging people to watch TV stations that are excitable, Fox News with their giant headlines, with their simplistic answers for everything. We've talked about this before. The amygdala, the part of the brain that operates out of fear, if you can keep people afraid, if you can keep people uncertain, they will not think through anything. The first reaction when you hear gunshots is to duck and run. It's not to think what is happening. It is survival is first. If you watch the news every day, if you watch what the politicians are doing to this country, they are creating crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. They're doing everything they can to destabilize people so they can get more money, so the taxes that we pay for their luxury yachts, their Cayman Island bank accounts. And, go ahead.
And I realize that churches and organized religion spans the spectrum of critical thinking, if you will. Why do many on that continuum, particularly I guess on the left side of let's not do critical thinking, why is that perpetuated generation after generation?
Churches are particularly bad about this because churches teach their kids in Sunday school, this is the story of creation, this is the story of Christ's birth, this is the story of Christ's resurrection. They don't teach children to ask why. They say this is what happened, this is the truth. If you ask them why, it's because the Bible says so. Why does the Bible say so? Because God told us in the Bible. How did God tell us? He told us through the prophets, or he told us through the writers of the Bible. Well, how did God tell them? If you keep asking questions, you come up with a question mark at the end. Religion does not want questions. Religion wants fealty. Religion wants loyalty. Religion wants faith. And that's the ultimate answer. You have to have faith. And that is why UUs are a little bit different. We believe in community. We believe in faith in each other. We have no prohibition against faith in any other deity, whether it's pagan, trees, or the Christian God, or the Muslim God, or the Hindu God. They are all acceptable. The main point is community and faithfulness toward your fellow human beings. But that is not what creates people who follow the rules. That's not what creates people who do what they're told without asking questions. And that's what we're facing in an increasing amount. Public schools are the whole idea of critical thinking is being destroyed. Books are being thrown out of the libraries in Florida that talk about racism. The revised textbook that talks about, what was the woman's name who sat in the bus that wouldn't go to the back seat? Rosa Parks. They're taught that Rosa Parks was sitting in a different seat. They didn't say, the new textbooks say nothing about race. They say nothing about the reason that she was told to sit in the back of the bus. They just said Rosa Parks refused to move to the back of the bus, and that created a big boycott in Birmingham, but no reason why. That is the kind of things we need to know. And that is, there is a planned attack on all this stuff. It's unbelievable, and it's all being paid for by the billionaires who've made their money. And we're looking at data centers now, and maybe we'll talk about data centers in the future. The people who control our media, who take your Facebook page, and if you do a search for you got ants in your house, Facebook, you're going to get 1 billion ads for thousands of different ways to control ants. And all of the weirdest things, the strangest things, and some of the things that actually work. But all that stuff has to go to some computer somewhere. It has to be sorted out, it has to be sold to the people that want to use it, and then it has to be shuffled back to you. That's what a data center does. It just takes information of all kinds, everything that you do online, your phone number, your credit card, everything you buy. When you buy something, if you buy a sweatshirt, you're going to get ads for all. I've been looked into campaign materials. I'm getting like thousands of, here's a way to, the cheapest placards or buttons or whatever else. You're buried by this stuff. And that's what these data centers do. The
data centers do critical thinking?
They don't do any thinking, they regurgitate. but they use our electricity.
They mine data, that's critical thinking. They may not reason, but they problem solve and evaluate constantly.
We can talk about AI too, artificial intelligence. Maybe we should talk about that. If you pay attention to artificial intelligence and use critical thinking, it's been proven that artificial intelligence makes up things to convince you. It sounds realistic, but when people use artificial intelligence to write their doctoral or their master's thesis, the professor goes through and it'll cite the Department of Health, Kennedy, has cited studies that artificial intelligence made up. It's not a study, it's just a name that says it's a study.
Or fills in the gaps from its extensive research as it synthesizes a particular solution or a problem or a narrative.
Yes.
It will fill in the gaps simply to make it readable and whole.
And it tells you what you want to hear. When people ask how to commit suicide, artificial intelligence is right there telling them how to do it. Parents have sued these companies and saying, why at least have artificial intelligence send a report or a warning to somebody. But artificial intelligence, when you ask how to cut up a body, artificial intelligence will tell you how to do that.
Well, the Saudis know how to do that as well.
Some people don't have a long history of doing that, so. But I mean, artificial intelligence is not, and that is the scary part, that people think artificial intelligence is going to be that electronic God that knows all the answers. That electronic God is making up the answers. It's
Well,
basically
from tons of data, it's making it
From
up.
tons of
but its
data.
accuracy on a particular percentage.
And there's a
level
fairness
is very-
question, because they're taking, the artificial intelligence is taking all these books that have been written, all these research studies that have been done, they're taking that information and using it as information to sell to other people without rewarding the people that actually did the work. So like when an author writes a book, he gets a copyright fee for people who read that book or buy that book. Artificial intelligence doesn't pay any fees. It takes the book, it sucks all the information in, and it spits it out whenever it wants to. So there are many questions that we have to answer. But part of the problem is it's all happening so fast and there's so much information coming that nobody has a chance to actually think about it.
And artificial intelligence is learning from previous artificial intelligence. It's evaluating that. And it's refining and refining more and more till maybe someday, who knows, it might be slightly less than accurate. But accurate.
Or it might be more accurate. If you look at artificial intelligence use in medicine, artificial intelligence, when it runs through x-rays and CAT scans, it catches things that doctors don't catch. So it needs to be there as a backup, and that is one of the things that people are afraid about. Pretty soon, artificial intelligence, when you go to the doctor and you give them a list of symptoms and they prescribe the test to run, artificial intelligence is a lot smarter than the average medical school graduate. They all have their biases. They all have they look at people and say, you're just making that up, when it may not be. Or they may take somebody seriously who is making it up. Artificial intelligence knows how to weed through that. So we're not saying, just like data centers, we're not saying there's no reason for them. We're saying we as the people don't want to pay their electric bill. We don't want to pay their water bill. We don't want their polluted water polluting our water. And we don't want them taking over huge thousands of acres and then employing 10 or 15 people, even though it may take 500 people to build the data center. It's only going to take 10 or 15 people basically to keep the machines plugged in and keep them cool. So, and plus the noise. The main thing for me, my concerns as I read this, is electricity. Not only are we paying for the electricity they use, which is monumental, we are paying to extend the networks, the high tension lines that run everywhere to get the electricity to the data centers. That's all being added on to your electric bill.
Isn't there an owner to the data centers? Isn't there an owner to the
Yes.
data centers? Why wouldn't they be charged for those utilities?
Because they bought the politicians, and the politicians in Ohio said, you're getting a tax rebate. You're building a data center, so you don't have to pay taxes for 5 years because you're providing construction jobs. And you're providing, and you know what else they do to the council, city council, the county commissioners? They all have to sign NDAs. You know what an NDA is?
Non-disclosure.
A non-disclosure agreement. So if the reporters or your public ask you, why did you do this? You say, I can't say because I signed a non-disclosure agreement. Why would a data center want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement if what you're doing is not underhanded? And it doesn't mean they're paying them, but they are keeping their jobs because the data centers pay for the average, for the people who run for office. They pay all their bills. You'll see lots of ads. You're seeing ads on TV now against some candidates and 4 others that are not paid for by the candidate. They're paid for by an independent committee, and it doesn't say an independent committee of rich people from California. It just says friends of or whatever.
Yeah.
Money in politics, when they said corporations are people, corporations are not people. They are not people. They do not deserve those individual rights. We are being screwed to the wall but that's one of the things that money bought the Congress, and Congress passed the law. And I don't know what the answer to that is, because then you have gerrymandering. They change the districts so they can't lose. And the famous quote is, the politicians are choosing their voters. No longer do the voters choose their politicians. The politicians go to data centers and they find out where the votes are using computers, and they line up these little districts that look like snakes with broken backs, so they get elected every time. A huge majority of the districts in the United States never change. They are gerrymandered to be the same no matter who's running. That's why the primary election is the most important election. If you don't vote in the Republican primary in Ohio, you have no real choice on who gets to be an office holder. And that's one of the reasons that they say that the registered Republicans are so high in Ohio. There's so many of them because that's when the election is. If you don't vote for the person that you want, then when the regular election comes, the person who's been nominated by the Republicans is the automatic winner. Half the time, the Democrats don't even put anybody on the ballot, because what's the point? So we're running out of time here. So we may talk about this topic. Sounds like this is something people are interested in. So we'll do some research on data centers or something. So anyway, critical thinking, reasoning, problem solving, evaluating. All right. If anybody, we ask this every week, but if anybody who's watching wants to contribute, we would be more than happy to take your money and give it to poor people. So we are going to hear, where's this thing? We'll build a land. is number 6, just as long as I have breath. Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. All right, extinguishing the chalice, Faith Like a Light by James Gallinsky. Our faith like a light illuminates the path before us so that we can face hurt with love, cultivate compassion, live humbly in community, and confront despair with the awe of life. Though our flame is extinguished, our faith shines bright before us. And I want to close with a quote from Mark Twain. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to say, what is going on here? Okay, that ends our service, and we're going to hear Tiptoe Through the Tulips for our final. Isn't it amazing what gathers people's attention and just one of the weird, strange things about being human?
Yeah.
All right, our final quote from W.C. Fields, one of my favorites. Horse sense is the thing a horse has which keeps it from betting on people. All right, that ends our service. We'll keep our candle lit. Hopefully Cecil will be back with us before long. And Ty, hopefully he's doing well and maybe can make a return and sing for us. All right, coffee and donuts.